You are watching programming from the East-West Center in Washington, D.C.
Good evening from the East Coast of the United States. Good morning to our friends in the Mekong region and Mekong countries and throughout Southeast Asia and East Asia, and at other times around the world in this day and age when people join us for such programs. So welcome to you all, and a special welcome indeed to our distinguished speakers this evening for the launch of the report Indo-Pacific Conference on Strengthening Governance of Transboundary Rivers report. This report is a collaboration between the Department of State, the East-West Center, and the Meridian Center, International Center. And it is based on a conference of over 100 participants who met last fall to discuss ways to improve the management of the Mekong River as a transboundary river, and to the millions, the 70 million or so lives that depend on the safekeeping and the good order of the river. And what was particularly unique about the conference was that it brought together not only a range of stakeholders from governments, regional institutions, civic society, experts, academics, but it also brought together individuals and experts and government officers from a range of other countries, including in Europe, Korea, Japan, Australia, India, amongst others. And so it was truly an attempt and an effort to bring views, perspectives, and expertise on best practices and principles for strengthening transboundary river governance, focusing on the Mekong in particular. We are at the East-West Center in Washington delighted to have been a part of this collaboration project, and we have produced a report drafted by my colleague Ross Takala in our office and wonderfully designed by Miss Michelle Reyes. We are also grateful, of course, to the State Department and Meridian Center International for their collaboration. Tonight, in order to launch the report, and the link will be available to you to download the report, we have a very distinguished group of American and Mekong country ambassadors, as well as a distinguished member of the United States Congress serving on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, including the Subcommittee on Asia. So with that, my name is Atul LeMay. I am the Vice President of the East-West Center, and it's a delight to welcome you for this program. I think we should jump straight away into the comments of our distinguished speakers so as to get their perspectives on the report and the issues at play. And then we can hopefully have a little bit of time for some Q&A at the tail end. We do have a fairly hard stop at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. With that, welcome. And the first speaker per the program announcement is Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Bureau of East Asian and Pacific Affairs, Ambassador Atul Keshap. Welcome, Ambassador Keshap, and I invite you to make your remarks.
Thank you, Satu, my good friend, Dr. LeMay. Thank you very much for having me on this presentation to help you and the East-West Center launch this report. We always deeply value and appreciate our partnership with the East-West Center and with you in particular. And it's a real privilege for me to be able to join you and everybody else who has joined this seminar tonight and this morning, wherever you may be all around the world. I also really want to say a very hearty hello and greetings to my respected colleagues, the ambassadors of Vietnam and Thailand and Cambodia that are on the call. And of course, Congressman Liu, we're very honored to have you, sir. It's great to see the interest of the United States Congress in these very important issues, and of course, the work of the East-West Center. Satu, I don't need to tell you anything you don't already know, having just launched this fantastic report. But on behalf of the women and men of the State Department, let me just say that we feel that this report is excellent and really builds beautifully on the work of the conference organized in October by the East-West Center, and summarizes the work examining the challenges faced by the Mekong River. which, as you rightly said, is a transboundary river, and its basin is tied inextricably to the economies and the well-being and the livelihoods and the culture of over 70 million people. At the State Department, we remain concerned, just as we were in October during the conference, that record droughts and the upstream dams in China that exacerbate them are hurting the communities and ecosystems that have relied for countless generations on the Mekong River's natural flood pulse. There are dramatic consequences for food security, economic development, and the environment as a result. It is clear that the upstream dams are withholding water with limited coordination or notification, unnecessarily exacerbating the water security challenges that Mekong communities are facing. Just last week, the Mekong River Commission again issued calls for China to share timely and essential water data. This was in response to what the MRC called recent worrying drops in Mekong River water levels. The MRC statement cited Beijing's agreement in 2020 to share a year-round water level and rainfall data and to notify the MRC of any abnormal rise or fall in water levels. It is clear, however, that these commitments are not being met. This is an urgent issue, and this report, we believe, helps focus our attention on the next steps, even as it educates all of us about the challenges faced by the Mekong River. The conference report, we feel, will serve as an important resource guiding our efforts to improve transparency and strengthening the communities and institutions responsible for protecting the Mekong River. The nearly 70 million people who depend on the river have much to gain from transparent water governance. Expanding economic growth and addressing climate change also requires coordination and information sharing. The United States and our partners developed the Mekong Dam Monitor to better provide information on water usage. Upstream dam operators need to be more transparent and consultative with downstream neighbors. Stronger governance, institutions, and mechanisms are needed to support regional cooperation in the Mekong. The United States has supported the Mekong River Commission for decades and remains committed to sharing our expertise and working with you to preserve the autonomy and well-being of the Mekong River region. Perhaps most significantly, this report emphasizes the importance of including all stakeholders in river management. This requires moving beyond just government bodies and the MRC to include civil society in the decision-making process. Friends, permit me to speak for a minute about the role of the United States. The United States is committed to following through on the ideas discussed at the conference and in this report. We support the people of the Mekong, and we support a bright future for the Mekong River. Last year, we launched the Mekong-US partnership to broaden, deepen, and better resource our cooperation and collaboration. Through the Mekong-US partnership, the United States is partnering with Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, and Burma on solutions to emerging challenges, including transboundary resource management, regional economic connectivity, and human resources development, and non-traditional security issues like health security, narcotics trafficking, weapons trafficking, wildlife trafficking, and lamentably, human trafficking. We are strengthening our long-standing support for the MRC, guided by principles of transparency, inclusivity, good governance, and respect for autonomy and international law. We are continuing our work under the Mekong Water Data Initiative to improve water data sharing, including support for the Mekong Dam Monitor. And on this, let me make a shameless plug and encourage everybody, please, to explore the Mekong Dam Monitor online. It is an amazing resource. We are also, friends, empowering the skill and talent of the amazing people of the Mekong region through programs like the brand new Waisili Academy at the Fulbright University in Vietnam, and also our Young Scientists program. We are also supporting regional organizations like ACMEX and the efforts of partners like Japan, South Korea, Australia, India, and the countries in the European Union to support sustainable development and share global best practices. These efforts are collaborative, they are inclusive, and they follow the helpful efforts of countries like Vietnam to raise the profile of Mekong issues within ASEAN. And at this juncture, let me respectfully suggest to our ASEAN colleagues and friends that it would be very good if ASEAN could also study the Mekong River issues with as much attention as the maritime domain issues receive. Finally, I would just say that our work would be incomplete, speaking on behalf of the US government, without the efforts of local media in reporting on the value of the river and the effects of unsustainable practices. We applaud the tireless efforts of civil society advocates who strive for transparency, sustainability, and accountability. Dr. LeMay, in closing, let me just say that I feel that the conference report reflects knowledge and expertise from around the globe. It provides recommendations to ensure the millions of people who depend on the Mekong can continue to do so and have a prosperous and bright future. There is much riding on our efforts, and a lot of hard work lies ahead of us together. I encourage us all to stay in touch as we work on these very important issues. I'll make another shameless plug. You can stay in touch with the East Asia Bureau of the State Department through the Twitter handle US Asia Pacific. You can also take a look at the Mekong Dam Monitor at Mekong Monitor and on the web at monitor.mekongwater.org. Together, I am confident the Mekong River Basin will remain healthy and vibrant, sustaining generations far into the future. Thank you again, sir.
Thank you very much, Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary and Ambassador Keshap. That was a terrific opening statement for what will follow. And I want to thank you again for taking your late evening to join us today. And we have on the webcast now the links that you have outlined. We also have in the chat section links to various items that you mentioned and initiatives that you mentioned. And I hope folks will take a look at them, including an effort we did with the Stimson Center that I want to flag here, the Mekong Matters for America project, which is a broader effort to show the deep ties of the United States to the countries of the region. With that, we now turn to our second speaker, Representative Ted Lieu, who represents California's 33rd Congressional District. It is my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce Representative Lieu. He's a very busy gentleman serving on many committees, not most notably in the context of tonight's program, the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and particularly the Subcommittee on Asia. Congressman Lieu has a distinguished record of service, including as a U.S. Air Force officer. And we welcome you tonight, sir, and thank you to represent Congress's and the House Foreign Affairs Committee's interest and attention to the issues at hand. Please, Congressman.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And I want to thank the East-West Center for your terrific work on this important issue. I also want to thank Secretary Keshap for his leadership and for the speech he just gave. I agree with everything he just said. In addition, I want to thank all the participants tonight. Very honored to be with so many distinguished individuals. So the Mekong region is, as all of you know, hugely important and critical, and the United States supports the countries in that region. Unfortunately, what we've seen is population growth and economic development have created an insatiable demand for hydroelectric power, increasing competition over river resources. Meanwhile, drought and climate change further threaten these same resources. And we know from satellite data that we see increasing parts of the Mekong Delta starting to disappear with rising seas. So we need to engage in efforts to try to make sure that we can have the Mekong Delta, not just for the current generation, but for future generations. The U.S. is deeply engaged in this region, and our partnership with Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, and Myanmar has grown considerably since the Lower Mekong Initiative was launched in 2009. I do want to take this opportunity to say that the coup in Myanmar is absolutely unacceptable, and we hope that we can have a peaceful resolution in Burma, and that we have democracy restored. Now, over those 11 years, since 2009, the United States government has committed almost $3.5 billion in foreign assistance to the Mekong region, joined by billions of dollars in US government official financing and US private sector investment. Last year, the US launched the Mekong-US partnership, broadening and deepening US collaboration to now become a broader, deeper, more strategic and better resource collaboration, reflecting the importance of the Mekong region and our commitment to our Mekong partners. Just consider US relations with Vietnam, which has grown in so many ways, from trade to education to military cooperation. To protect the Mekong's natural resource base, countries must also consider alternative power sources to reduce the cumulative impacts of dams and coordinate with one another on the planning and operation of dams that are deemed essential. Under the Biden administration, I also look forward to a new era of US efforts to combat climate change, a threat to all humankind, and in particular to the Mekong Basin and other countries near the basin. I do want to note that unlike the last administration, the current administration is much more focused on alliances. We view our allies as exactly that, our allies, and not somehow our enemies. And we look forward to working with partnerships, with alliances, instead of a simply go it alone approach of US foreign policy. So I think you're going to see a much more collaborative administration this term with President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. I also want to note that this collaboration with the United States is important because we also need to make sure that we prevent any overreach from China. And we need to make sure that the resources are accurately distributed and that our partners in the Mekong region are not unfairly discriminated against. So with that, thanks so much for inviting me and look forward to working with all of you.
Congressman, thank you so much for your remarks. And again, let me underscore how important it is that you took the time and how grateful we are that you took the time to speak to this issue and that it is on the agenda and the radar of you and your committee and subcommittee. I want to promise you that I will work closely with your staff and your committee staff as well on this and other issues. And in the context of your remarks, I want to make this announcement today that as part of the East-West Center's congressional staff programs, which we launched today, we opened a new one on United States-Japan relations. We will soon be launching a new congressional staff program on US Southeast Asia and ASEAN relations, including a session on the Mekong River and Mekong region. So I want to thank you, and I look forward to working closely with your staff on setting that congressional staff program ahead.
Thank you.
Now we turn to the winner of tonight's longest distance effort to join us. And that is, of course, His Excellency Ambassador Hakim Nok, who happens to be in Hanoi. And in working with his embassy team in inviting him today, we were hoping beyond hope that he would be able to join from Hanoi. And we are grateful that it was possible to do so. Ambassador Nok, it is wonderful to see you again after some months because of the pandemic. And I deeply appreciate you joining us all the way from Hanoi today. Please, may I invite you to make your remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Atul, Vice President of the East-West Center, for your kind introduction. Actually, I was back to Washington, D.C. already.
Oh, wonderful. I was told you were there. Okay.
Yes, for this event.
Oh,
Honorable Atul Keshap, Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, Honorable Ted Lieu, Member of the House Committee on Foreign Affairs, Your Excellency Chum Sonri, Ambassador of Cambodia, Your Excellency Manasvi Sri Sopadon, Ambassador of Thailand. First of all, as the Lunar New Year festive spirit is still in the air, let me wish you all good health and happiness in the year of the ox. I also wish to express my sympathy to the loss and hardships faced by our American friends over the past few days because of the destructive snowstorms and cold weather unseen in decades. Vietnam welcomes the launch of the report on strengthening governance of transboundary rivers Addressing Challenges in the Mekong Basin by the East-West Center. We very much appreciate various policy recommendations, which show the close linkage of three important factors: security, development, and climate change in our sub-region. Ladies and gentlemen, I echo with other speakers on the significance of water security, especially transboundary water resources, to peace and prosperity for humankind in the 21st century. Nowhere in the world does this reality ring more true than in the Mekong sub-region. The livelihood of nearly 70 million people, including over 20 million Vietnamese, depends on how the Mekong water resources are used and managed. Vietnamese wet rice and aquaculture farmers bore the loss of over $1 billion caused by the historic droughts in the lower Mekong Basin in the two periods of 2015, 2016, and 2019, 2020. This will happen more often if we fail to act quickly, especially in strengthening the governance of transboundary water resources. Therefore, all riparian states share the responsibility to utilize and manage transboundary water resources in a sustainable manner. As a responsible member of the international community, Vietnam has tried our best and worked with other countries to build rules and norms on the governance of transboundary rivers. We are proud to become the first ASEAN member state to have joined the 1997 UN Convention on the Law of Non-Navigational Uses of International Water Courses. We are also an active and responsible member in the Mekong River Commission, MRC, ACMEX, and other Mekong sub-regional cooperation mechanisms. As Ambassador Atul Keshap mentioned earlier, under our ASEAN chairmanship in 2020, the Mekong Sustainable Development has enjoyed broad-based support of all ASEAN member states. The ASEAN now shares the awareness that sustainable development in the Mekong sub-region is inextricably linked to a strong and united ASEAN community. We are very encouraged that the February 23rd, 2021 press statement of the Department of State reaffirms the US continued support and commitment to a sustainable development of the Mekong sub-region, especially with the Mekong Water Data Initiative and the Mekong Dam Monitor. I also appreciate the strong leadership by Ambassador Atul Keshap and Representative Ted Lu in this area. Vietnam and other countries in the Mekong sub-region and ASEAN at large stand ready to work closely with the United States to ensure a successful US-Mekong partnership. In this regard, I would like to share with you 3 points. First, we encourage the active and constructive engagement of all stakeholders, ranging from governments of all riparian states, international and regional organizations, think tanks, to NGOs and local populace. The insightful observations and strategic vision shown by Ambassador Keshap and Congressman Lu demonstrate the whole of government approach of the United States in assisting the Mekong sub-region to cope with security, development, and climate change challenges. Second, it is also time for us to work together to build rules and norms for water governance. Unlike in most other areas, the legal framework for transboundary water resources management remains fragile and non-binding. Therefore, strengthening our efforts in international laws, regulations, codes of conduct in this area is much appreciated. Third, We hope that the United States will soon implement 1 or 2 pilot projects, especially in energy and infrastructure, to better connect transportation and power network across Mekong countries. We also support US investments in the Mekong sub-region that help address climate change and promote sustainable development by advancing green energy projects and climate resilience investments. In this process, the coordination between the United States and other Mekong's external partners, such as Japan, Korea, India, Australia, etc., will broaden the impacts and avoid the duplication of efforts. A stronger legal framework governing transboundary rivers is long overdue. It is time for us to take strong and concerted action. Only by joining hands with each other can we build a more stable, peaceful, and sustainable future for next generations in the region. Thank you.
Ambassador Ngoc, thank you so much for those very eloquent and forward-leaning remarks. I was particularly impressed with your connection of security, development, and climate change, and concrete proposals for next steps to address these issues in their interrelationship. So thank you, and thank you for making the journey back to Washington to join this program. I thought we were going to give you the award for the longest distance joiner, but we give you an additional award for the longest distance arriver as well. Thank you, Ambassador Ngoc.
Thank you.
It is my pleasure now to turn to our distinguished colleague, His Excellency Ambassador Sonru Chum, who represents the Kingdom of Cambodia to the United States. And he's been in the United States since 2018 and is a close observer, and we have worked together in Hill events where we have launched other reports and initiatives of the East-West Center. Ambassador, it's good to see you again, and thank you for joining. May I invite you please to make your remarks.
Yes, thank you for the introduction. Dr. Atul Limaji, Vice President, East-West Center and Director of East-West Center in Washington. Ambassador Atul Keshap, Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary, Department of State. Representative Ted Lu, Member of Committee on Foreign Affairs, House of Representatives. Our Mekong colleagues, Ambassador Ngoc and Ambassador Manasvi. First, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Dr. Atul Limaji, the East-West Center, and all the organizers of the Indo-Pacific Conference on Strengthening Governance and Transboundary Rivers, as well as the launching ceremony of this conference report. My special thanks and high appreciation go to everyone who has shared their thoughts during the conference in order to contribute to the prosperity, connectivity, and sustainability of the Mekong. I am encouraged to learn that the conference that was held with the goal to share best practices and lessons learned on cooperative development and management of transboundary rivers has come up with several policy recommendations that merit a serious consideration. I would like to share some of my views by starting with key challenges facing the Mekong. The Mekong River Commission, which is an intergovernmental organization of the lower Mekong countries, established to serve as a regional platform for water diplomacy and water resources management for the sustainable development of the region, said in the report released in June last year that extreme low flows and extensive flooding in different communities along the Mekong River and an increasing number of droughts that have occurred in many parts of the region in recent years are among the signs that the Mekong region is facing increasing risk from extreme weather events and developments. Severe droughts in the lower Mekong Basin have caused substantial economic losses due to damages of agricultural crops, negative impacts on the environment, and adversely effects on people's livelihood, added the report. In October last year, the lower Mekong region had experienced prolonged heavy rains that have caused severe and widespread flooding and landslides in several parts of the region. In Cambodia, flooding has affected over 240,000 people, and at least 20 people have lost their lives. Almost 60,000 houses were damaged, and over 26,000 people have been evacuated. Thousands of hectares of rice and other crops were also damaged. Cambodia has been experiencing serious impact from drought also. Flood and drought require stronger regional cooperation. The countries along the lower Mekong River need to step up their collective efforts in addressing the problems facing them now and in the future. For example, by ensuring transparency, quality, and timelessness in water data sharing, and underline the MRC. And another serious challenge in a recent statement by the MRC Secretariat said, the Mekong had fallen to worrying levels and called on China and the lower Mekong countries themselves to share their water release plan with MRC in order to help the lower Mekong countries manage risk more effectively. Anyway, in order to optimize benefits and mitigate all kinds of risks, the Mekong countries have further strengthened the MRC and enhanced cooperation with all development partners and friends of the Mekong, including the United States and China. With regard to Mekong-US cooperation, may I recall with high appreciation the US engagement with the Mekong countries. In the framework of Lower Mekong Initiative, the United States has provided us with nearly $3.5 billion development assistance from 2009 to 2020. Indeed, the activities and programs under the LMI framework have contributed significantly to the socio-economic development in the Mekong sub-region, and thus positively impact on the livelihood of its people. And in order to expand this long-standing relationship, the Mekong countries, together with the United States, have launched on September last year the Mekong-US Partnership, marking another historical milestone of partnership between the sub-region and the United States. Sustainable water, natural resources management, and environmental conservation and protection were among the expanded areas of cooperation in the framework of the partnership. The United States has committed $153.6 million for this new partnership through various prospects, such as infrastructure and energy investment, water security and transboundary river management, and human resource development. Water data sharing, sustainable water, natural resource management, and environment protection in the Mekong region were among the topics addressed during the first Mekong-US Partnership inaugural ministerial meeting in September last year, and during the first Friends of the Mekong Policy Dialogue held in Hanoi on January 13 this year. On the other hand, the Mekong countries have strengthened cooperation with China in the framework of Mekong Lanchan cooperation to address water resource management and hydrological information sharing, especially during the 5th Mekong Lanchang Cooperation Foreign Ministers meeting in March last year, and in the 3rd Mekong Lanchang Cooperation Leaders meeting in August last year. In another move, the MRC and China's Ministry of Water Resources signed in October last year an agreement that will see China share year-round hydrological data with the MRC. This agreement is expected to contribute to better river monitoring as well as flood and drought forecasting in the Mekong countries. And I would like to conclude my remarks by saying Cambodia stands ready to work closely with the other Mekong countries as well as all partners and friends of Mekong with an aim to optimize benefits and mitigate all kinds of risks. We believe that the Mekong-US partnership will contribute significantly in helping us to address the key challenges facing the region. As the co-chair of the Mekong-US partnership, along with the United States in 2021, Cambodia is committed to advance this partnership to new heights. And I believe that the report of the Indo-Pacific Conference on strengthening governance of transboundary rivers will be thoroughly studied by the Cambodian institution concerned. Thank you.
Ambassador, thank you so much for your remarks. And I do apologize for not mentioning at the outset Cambodia's important role this year as the co-chair of the Mekong-US partnership. I'm so pleased you covered that role of Cambodia as co-chair, and particularly the activities you're engaged on in that context, as well as the range of activities the MRC and the region is engaged in to better manage the Mekong River resources. So thank you once again for joining us and for Cambodia's co-chairmanship. We now turn to our next ambassador from the Mekong region, and that is our ambassador from Thailand, Ambassador Sri Sodapol Manasvi. And we are delighted that you are able to join us this evening, Ambassador, and I'd like to invite you to make your remarks. Thank you so much. You've been serving here just since 2020, and I know you've been extremely busy, but I thank you and your staff for making it possible for you to join us this evening. Please.
Thank you. Thank you. Greetings and sawadee krap, Dr. Satu Limai, Ambassador Keshap, Honorable Representative Liu, Your Excellencies Ambassador Ngoc and Ambassador Chum, and also greetings to your viewers. I would like to thank the East-West Center for inviting me to join you at today's report launch, and would like to thank the East-West Center for its long-standing good work in strengthening ties between the US and Asia through the academic lens. I would also like to thank the State Department, the US government, the US Congress, and all partners for the continued support rendered to the Mekong sub-region through the Lower Mekong Initiative and the Lower and the Mekong US Partnership. Thailand has high hopes for the strong partnership and will continue to play an active role. The Mekong River represents the lifeline of almost 70 million people living along the Mekong Basin, whose livelihoods are intertwined with the well-being of the river itself, from food and energy security to agriculture, productivity and physical connectivity to culture and traditions. Because of its rich resource, the Mekong River also contributes significantly to the wider population and economies of the 6 riparian countries. Given the rapid economic development that is taking place and that we can foresee in the foreseeable future, today's report launch is timely in reminding us to identify the challenges learn from one another, and find ways to address these challenges. I would like to take this opportunity to offer some thoughts on two major challenges: economic inequality and sustainability, both of which tie back to the well-being of the Mekong River itself. On economic inequality, despite increased urbanization and industrialization in the Mekong Basin, we continue to see pockets of poverty, people who are unable or have been marginalized by the economic development. As the river resources dwindle due to the impact of urbanization, the inequality gap will grow, and poverty, as Ambassador Keshap mentioned, can be a breeding ground for illicit activities. Therefore, it is vital that we adopt an inclusive economic model that leaves no one behind. On sustainability, expansion of economic activities such as farmlands, factories, fisheries, and transportation has led to increasing strains on our natural resources. As the economy expands, there is an increasing need for the region to generate more electricity to meet the demand. Hydropower is an obvious, relatively clean option in a region with abundance of water. However, too many dams and the effects of climate change can alter the flows of river, disrupting not only power generation of downstream dams, but also fish stocks, sediments, irrigational farmlands, and along with it, the livelihood of millions of people along the river. Therefore, we think about finding ways to address sustainability in the Mekong Basin. We have to think of these issues as linked, and the central link is water. Simply put, if there's no water, there is no river. If there's no water, there is no life. Therefore, strengthening river governance and transparency is central to any domestic or international cooperative efforts to address economic inequality and sustainability in the Mekong region. Thailand supports sharing of timely, accurate, and high-quality water data on the mainstream Mekong River. We believe that if the riparian states, local farmers, and local fishermen have appropriate tools, data, and capacity to predict the amount of water in their areas, they can make necessary adjustments and plans for themselves. We entrust and fully support the Mekong River Commission to play this crucial role, and will work with our partners to strengthen the Mekong River's capacity as a knowledge hub on transboundary river management. Last but not least, I would also like to add that addressing infrastructure gaps is crucial to ensure economic inclusion and sustainability through ensuring people's access to basic needs in water, electricity, healthcare, and education. As the Mekong countries continue to invest more in infrastructure, there will be plenty of opportunities for development partners through various Mekong cooperation frameworks, such as the Mekong US Partnership, to offer advice, build capacity, and support to make sure that these infrastructure projects meet their long-term goals. Let us join hands to make the Mekong River a river of peace, friendship, and prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Manasvi, very much, and for particularly highlighting the relationship between the Mekong River resources to issues such as economic inequality and infrastructure gaps. I think that was a very welcome and useful addition to our discussion this evening. Well, we are now approximately 15 minutes away from the close of the program, and I would like to take the opportunity to raise a couple of questions that have come in and a couple of questions that I have. And I will be selective, and I hope participants will give me some room for doing so, because I would like to get everyone involved in this discussion. And so there are a couple of questions for specific speakers, including the Ambassador of Cambodia and for Congressman Liu. And I would refer those questions to them as well. But let me first start with the general ones, and as if we have time, we'll go to the specific one. One issue is that, as you all know, there are many issues grappling for attention in Southeast Asia and in ASEAN. And there are developments, political, economic, security, that contend with each other for this attention and resources and effort. And Ambassador Keshap raised the issue of putting a higher profile on Mekong River transboundary governance onto the ASEAN agenda. And in particular for our ambassadors who represent their countries in the region, may I first ask them to articulate some ideas about what you propose to help ASEAN give greater highlight to these very important issues that affect the livelihoods and the sustainability and the well-being of the 70 million plus people. And similarly for Congressman Liu, I would welcome any thoughts you might have, sir, on the role of the Asia subcommittee of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, as well as the full committee on engaging ASEAN on these issues. May I start with Ambassador Ngoc from Vietnam on this issue?
Thank you, Dr. Limay, for your question. I think I completely agree with Ambassador Keshap that ASEAN need to put higher priority on this issue on the agenda of ASEAN. And I can say that in our region as a whole, we have some top priority issues, including the South China Sea, or we call the East Sea. And for Vietnam and for some other ASEAN countries, I think the Mekong sub-region is also of strategic significance in terms of security, prosperity, stability, and also the development of the whole region. This sub-region, consists of 5 ASEAN, the mainland Southeast Asian countries, Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. And I completely agree with Ambassador Manasvi about the gap of development. ASEAN cannot develop, cannot be united, cannot be strong without the development of this region. So I think it's time for ASEAN to put more emphasis on the development, on the security, and especially the security of water resources, of food, of energy. And I think last year as chair of ASEAN, Vietnam was able to get the support and the attention from all ASEAN members. And we need to do more in this year.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Ngoc. May I now turn to our colleague, Ambassador of Cambodia. Ambassador?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Limayi. For my view, I think the Mekong sub-region is an important part of the ASEAN family. So the development of the Mekong sub-region will contribute significantly in the development of the ASEAN as a whole, and especially concerning the gap among the ASEAN members. The development of the Mekong sub-region will have to reduce the gap existed among the ASEAN members. That's first. And secondly, the development of the Mekong sub-region will have to promote the connectivity, including the economic connectivity among the ASEAN family. So, in general, I can say that the development of the Mekong region will contribute in the development of the ASEAN as a whole. So, ASEAN need to pay much attention to the development of the region of the Mekong sub-region. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Both you and Ambassador Ngoc have pointed out how important for ASEAN's success as a whole it is to address the development gap and therefore within ASEAN, and therefore how crucial it is to address the Mekong issues. We now turn in that spirit to Ambassador Manasvi.
If you look in hindsight, you will see that the Mekong riparian states represent the new members of ASEAN, more or less. So as new members, there's a lot of development needs that needs to be addressed along the Mekong River, and we feel that ASEAN, with its own limited capacity, cannot help the Mekong by itself. They need partners, and we have plenty of partners who are interested to join us in developing or addressing the development needs, either bilaterally or through the different sub-regional frameworks, including the Lower Mekong and the US partnership. So we feel that, once we can try to increase and raise the development level, the economic development in the Mekong, it will provide greater prosperity and a greater dynamism for ASEAN as well as for the rest of Asia. And we can become even stronger partners for the US. That is our feeling. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Manasvi. Congressman Liu, may I ask you in this general context to talk about the work that your committee and you will be doing about our relations with ASEAN, and how we go forward. And it also addresses one of the specific questions to you in the Q&A about how this administration and this Congress, new Congress, will respond to Mekong priorities.
Thank you, Satu, for your question. Let me first say that I'm very honored to be on this panel again with the distinguished ambassadors from Vietnam, Cambodia, and Thailand. Before I was in Congress, I did have the opportunity to visit each of your countries, and you represent beautiful countries. And so just want to say that. One of the things that we saw the last 4 years is we had an administration that did not engage with Congress. We would request witnesses, we would request documents. The former administration would basically ignore the Foreign Affairs Committee. We don't expect that to happen with the Biden administration. We do believe that when we have hearings and invite administration witnesses, not only do I think they're not going to ignore us, I think they're going to welcome the opportunity to come and tell the story to Congress and the American people about what they are doing. And I want to thank again the leadership of Secretary Keshap. Maybe I'll see you at a hearing someday. We also had a former president that was under investigation, in my view, rightfully so. So the committee was distracted. We had, as you know, allegations that the former administration withheld aid to Ukraine, and the Foreign Affairs Committee was part of that impeachment process. And when we looked at evidence, in my view, those weren't just allegations, those were facts. As a result, the former president was impeached because of that. That also took a lot of time of the Foreign Affairs Committee. You have a very different situation now where you have the Foreign Affairs Committee that is not going to be constantly distracted by crazy things happening at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I think you have a president that is going to work with our allies, that's going to work with the ASEAN countries, that is much more focused on collaboration, and that also believes, thankfully, in science and in facts. So climate change is a pretty big difference in terms of the former administration compared to this one. The Biden-Harris administration believes in climate change, views it as a huge threat. That's one reason they created a position in the cabinet for John Kerry that's going to have a great big role in implementing climate change regarding national security. And that's going to filter through all of our foreign policy issues, the climate change question. And that's a huge issue, as all of you know, with the Mekong region. And on the Asia subcommittee, I'm going to try to raise a profile of the Mekong region. As all of you know, the Foreign Affairs Committee hasn't really focused on this region. I think it's time that we do that.
Well, thank you very much, Congressman Liu. That's very encouraging indeed. And we look forward to working with you on that as well. Ambassador Keshap, you did raise this issue of ASEAN, and it would not be proper for me not to give you a chance if you wanted to make any further comment, given what we've heard from our colleagues.
Satu, that's very kind. I really appreciate the observations everybody has already given. I particularly appreciate Representative Liu's invitation, and I'm at his service at any time to continue the dialogue and conversation. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank the Congress for their unceasing support to all of the US government programs in the Mekong. I want to thank Ambassador Chom for having mentioned the $3.5 billion in American support to the Mekong region since 2009. And the great thing about that support is that it's for all the good things. It's for the betterment and upliftment and happiness and prosperity of all of the people of the region, because we as Americans believe that if countries are strong, if people are happy, then that's good for America and it's good for our people at home. So thank you to the Congress for that. And may I also just observe that I think in just a little more than a month in office, Secretary Blinken has already spoken to a half dozen of his ASEAN counterparts. And I think that really underlines his emphasis on ASEAN centrality. Obviously, we have two great American allies within ASEAN, and we have very strong bilateral partnerships with all of the countries in ASEAN. We share Congressman Liu's concerns about Burma, but we will absolutely continue to put full effort to the greatest extent possible into our relations with ASEAN as an institution, regionally, and of course, bilaterally with all 10 members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Keshap. Now, we have 5 minutes left, just maybe 3-4 minutes left, but I really want to give each of you very quickly an opportunity to address sort of a selfish question for me as Vice President of the East-West Center, whose mission, as authorized by Congress, is to promote better understanding and relations between the United States and Asia through collaborative and cooperative exchange, training, and research. This panel, as you know, is all represented by terrific, respected officials from the various countries. But I do want to ask one big finding of this report, and using examples from Europe, North America, and elsewhere, the very important role of open, transparent, accountable civil societies in all of their range. Academics, media, scholars, specialists, research institutes. Could you say just a quick word to help guide us on what more we can do in addition to the numerous programs that are already going on, ranging from YSEALI to science training to the new program Academy at the university in Vietnam, etc. Please, and this time, may we begin with Ambassador Manasvi.
Well, as you know, Thailand has a very strong civil society pool. We have a lot of NGOs working in Thailand on many fields. And there are also a lot of civil society who have particular interest in the Mekong region. And I think that they provide a body of knowledge as well as a voice on issues that pertain to the utilization and the state of the Mekong region. East-West Center is a center for knowledge and learning, and we would continue to hope that you will focus your knowledge and research on the Mekong region and how how the center can help provide better information and better ideas for Ambassador Keshap and for the honorable congressmen when the policy issues come up to their table.
Thank you, Ambassador. We certainly will do our best efforts on that. Ambassador Chum of Cambodia, may I invite you just to speak on this issue?
Yes, I believe that the East-West Center will continue to contribute significantly in the building of a strong bridge of understanding between the United States and Asia, between the United States and ASEAN, and also between the United States and the Mekong sub-region, including Cambodia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Ngoc, as you know, we're also very active with Vietnam colleagues as we are in Cambodia and Thailand.
We are so grateful for the efforts and contribution of East-West Center to Mekong sub-region, and among which Vietnam-US cooperation in this area is also enhanced in the past few years. And I think we need further cooperation in the area of research and study, especially the negative effect, of the hydropower plant upstream, and also the climate change for Vietnam in general, and particularly the Mekong Delta, which is most affected, by the hydropower plants upstream. And second, I think the U.S. continued leadership is very important. And I share my colleagues' view that the East-West Center will continue to give recommendation to the administration, to the Congress for the policy-making level. And we strongly believe that the U.S. continued leadership and commitment will be a very decisive factor for the success of our collaboration.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Ngoc. Let me turn to Congressman Liu. In addition to the Congressional Staff Program, what other ideas might you suggest as we go forward?
Yeah. So thank you, Satu. I'm going to take this opportunity based on your question to put a completely shameless plug in for my legislation known as the City and State Diplomacy Act. As we know, we have subnational diplomacy happening all across America with other countries, whether it's nonprofit exchanges or business delegations or chambers of commerce or delegations of city officials. And my view is at the federal level, we can either ignore that or we can help it. And so last term, I authored legislation with Republican Congressmember Joe Wilson out of South Carolina. We got it passed in the House. We also got bipartisan support in the US Senate. Unfortunately, the former administration opposed this very common sense bill. We think that the Biden administration won't oppose it. And so we look forward to try to put that in where we can have the State Department, if they want to, with these cities, assist these cities do this subnational diplomacy with countries, including countries such as Vietnam, Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia.
Thank you so much, Congressman Liu. I was hoping you would mention that, because one of the things I've discovered in working on the Mekong efforts, as have many colleagues, that there are so many activities across the United States engaged with the region, including on riparian issues, river issues, environmental issues, climate change issues. And this brings the best expertise, the best knowledge from across the US, working across these countries too, at the subnational level, at university levels and research centers. So I really want to say how much your leadership on subnational diplomacy is welcome, especially given our whole Asia Matters for America initiative, which seeks to highlight how there are state, local, city relationships that build the totality of our interactions between the United States and Asia. With that, I'm in already trouble with His Excellency Ambassador Keshap, who gave me strict instructions of a hard stop at 2100, 9 p.m., and I have failed. I am 4 minutes over, and I know I will pay the price. I'm willing to do so. But Atul, if you have any last words, other than to reprimand me for my tardiness, why don't you say them now, and then I will close out the program and thank everyone.
No, never any reprimand. I just didn't realize my staff were so zealous and firm. They clearly missed the memo on the State Department being the softies, But let me say this: I don't want to reiterate all of the great observations of the previous speakers, but let me just say, Satu, how much we appreciate subnational engagement and particularly civil society engagement. I'll make a shameless plug for your pamphlet, Why ASEAN Matters for America, Why America Matters for ASEAN. Those sorts of things are really helpful in educating our societies about the very great linkages that exist between countries at all sorts of levels. And when you look at American engagement in Asia, one of the things that is really the most impressive to me is the Young Southeast Asia Leaders Initiative, YSEALI. There are tens of thousands of young people across Southeast Asia who have had an opportunity through this program to learn more about the United States, including many who have come here. And this is very much our contribution to what is a broader American effort, including by American companies. If you think about it, there's over 1,000 American companies active and present and investing in Southeast Asia. And those partnerships have helped build the prosperity and the human resources and the skills of countries all around the world, and particularly in the Mekong region. In fact, I think the earliest American corporate presence in Southeast Asia dates back to 1894 in Bangkok, 125 years ago. And when you look at, for instance, programs in Vietnam to help increase the skills of tens of thousands of Vietnamese, to increase their English language skills, to increase their technical education so that they can get better high-paying jobs and contribute to the well-being of their societies. I think the American companies have had a strong record. The US government has. We appreciate the partnership with all of our friends in the region. We believe in respectful collaboration. And we do think that there is an innate genius in civil society. Civil society and NGOs help educate fellow citizens. They help shine a spotlight on issues that are important. They frankly help keep government servants like me honest by making sure that real expertise focuses on our activities. They help guide us. They help educate us as well and make sure that we study the right things and focus the efforts of government. They are the very sort of grassroots of organization and activism. And through such strong civil society are great and powerful and empowered nations created. And so I think that civil society plays a vital role in helping the people of the Mekong region shine a light on these transboundary river governance issues, water issues, climate issues, environmental issues. And I have no doubt that if civil society plays that role, we will see a much happier and more prosperous region. And the United States is perfectly happy to partner with civil society everywhere, because we do believe there is an innate genius in it, and it's good for everybody. Thank you, Satu. Really grateful to East West Center for organizing this. It's been a wonderful event, and I want to thank everybody who tuned in. It's a lovely report. A lot of thought and effort went into it, and I learned a lot from it, and I hope that it in some way helps contribute to the well-being of all of the people of the Mekong. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And to our ambassadors and to Congressman Liu, really appreciate you taking the time to join us for this program. And we look forward to continued engagement with you on a range of issues, most especially the Mekong River and Mekong region. And thank you and good day, good evening, good morning to you for those joining us in Asia and at other times elsewhere in the world. Be well, be safe, and look forward to seeing you again on an East West Center platform. Good day.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honorable Congressman Liu, Ambassador Keshap, and Dr. Limai.
Thank you.
West Center
Bye-bye.
staff. Yeah.
Good night, everyone.
สวัสดีครับ
Good night.
Thank you.